Good morning. It's Monday, September 15th. I'm Phil Streible, Chief Market Strategist at Blue Line Futures. So some housekeeping. If you are currently trading in the U.S. equity futures, the currency futures, remember December is now the front month. So if you need assistance rolling those over, let me know and I'll help you with that. Now, we saw some massive profit taken in the silver market, specifically fueled by ETF selling on Friday. You look at last week's changes, the ETFs, they cut 7.59 million troy ounces of silver holdings on that push on up to $43. So Friday, we saw those ETFs reduce their holdings by about 7.82 million ounces here. So big sell-off here as we pushed on up to 43 on the December basis. You look at December silver, overnight down about 16 cents here at 42.66. Now looking at the setup here on the precious metals, the U.S. equity markets, we do have the NASDAQ rising for about 8 consecutive trading days. Equity futures, they are slightly higher here, even with the NVIDIA under some pressure after a probe that found that NVIDIA violated some anti-monopoly laws in China in a 2020 deal, leaving NVIDIA lagging this morning. So you look at NVIDIA, it closed right around that 178 mark, gapped a bit lower here, sold off, got down into the 172s, but is now pushing up in the pre-market trading here as some traders are coming in and looking to buy that dip. So the S&P 500 and NASDAQ just slightly higher here. Remember December, both the front month on them, 66.55. So if you see a gap in your charts there, what it is that the futures had switched on over. You go to the NASDAQ here, 24,363, and your Russell 2000 sitting at 24.24. That's the December basis here. Now looking at some other things, you are going to see some volatility take place here. Looking past that Fed meeting that's on Wednesday with a $5 trillion quarterly triple witching option expiration set. Strategists are also continuing to raise their S&P 500 price targets. I've read Morgan Stanley's Michael Wilson. He's leaning towards a bull case with the benchmark rising to 7,200 by mid-2026. As you get closer and we get into this fourth quarter here, what you'll see is strategists will come out with their Q1 and Q2 estimates here as far as price targets to the upside. So you take a look at the global markets, you got European equities, well, those are hovering and trading right around record highs. You go to Asian trading, those Asian equity benchmarks, they traded near a record close here, extending their rally and fueled by the easing of uncertainties surrounding the tariffs. So the US and China, they're very close to resolving some of their TikTok issues. Treasury Secretary Bessent said that in an interview. You look at copper futures, so you go back to the metals, the only one that is positive on the overnight session here is copper, and it's because the Chinese electric vehicle stocks, they really rallied here as investor sentiment was boosted by improving demand outlook, and the industry pledged support to have some more supply chain development. So it's going to take a lot more copper and things like that in order to meet those supply chain demands. Now, copper has held Blue Line's chart pack support here, as seen with 3 higher lows on the charts here, and the trend line continues to hold to the upside. You really want to see that breakout here over that 470 level in order to continue to fuel a rally higher. Now, back to Friday. If you're calling the case for a bear market, 10 out of the 11 sectors were positive on Friday. Some key events, again, this week is going to be that Fed meeting where a 25 basis point reduction is likely. You go to the CME's Fed Watch tool here, you got a 94.2% chance of that 25 basis point cut. You look at a 50 basis point cut, it only sits at about 5.8%. You go to the poly market, the gambling market, 91% chance of a 25 basis point cut and a 7% chance of a 50 basis point cut. Today we'll see that September Empire manufacturing data just estimated here to be a little bit weaker. The Fed is in its external blackout communication period all the way up until that Fed meeting. And then you go to the gold market and you look at the price action here, really consolidating back and forth over the last 5 sessions, 36.50 on up to about 3,700. You look at the silver market, your first major level of support here, minor support I'd say in the 42.50-ish area. area to 42.40. You break below that, it's going to be closer to that 41.25 down to 41.15, which is held for many sessions prior to that. You really don't want to see, if you're a bull, break below that. Most likely we'll test that $40 range, and then any kind of break below that, there are some gaps on the charts we're going to have to want to keep an eye on. You look at the crypto markets here, firmly in the red here and lower after that explosive move on Friday. Many clients that are working with me closely were lifting and reducing some of their crypto exposure here as that market rallied on up. And we tested the pivot point, which we outlined in the chart pack on Bitcoin here, right around that 116,000 mark. So you go to the ETFs here and you look at last week, again, they cut quite a bit of silver holdings. They also increased their holdings in the gold market by about 766,000 ounces. So you look at gold, year-to-date percentage change on those holdings, up about 13%, 11% on the silver market. And the gold-silver ratio, well, that sits at 86-1. So if you guys got any questions, reach out, give me a call, shoot an email to info@bluelinefutures.com. And remember that futures and option trading, well, it does involve risk of loss, and it may not be suitable to all investors. Good luck, good trading.